Good evening and welcome to Bent TV. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we begin with Megan and guests discussing hormones, their friend. Then our regular guest, Brenda Appleton, joins us once again on a more serious topic of trans and gender diverse mental health. Then we finish tonight with Mark and guests in the Bear Cave discussing PreP and whether the use of condoms campaign has lost its lustre.
Welcome back, guys. You are watching Bent TV. Now, to your left is Forth, and then to my right that you can see is the good old, our favourite, Felicity. And then we also have on the end our also fabulous friend of Simona. Now, we're going to be talking about one of our good little other friends, and our good little other friend is hormones. And we want to talk about what hormones have done to us and how they make us feel. So I know that I've enjoyed my ride on hormones, and you know, for you, Forth, what exactly have hormones done for you?
I've been speaking to a lot of other trans people, including trans men, which I think is interesting in that we seem to have quite similar responses a lot of the time. Some of them are the opposite, so you know, increase in sex drive versus decrease in sex drive and that sort of thing. But everyone seems to be more comfortable and everyone seems to be more relaxed. And there's that moment of, oh, actually, I feel so much more comfortable just in myself. So you get to relax into your body and not feel like you're at odds with yourself half as much. It's so much better. Even before any obvious external physical changes start to happen, you just feel better. You know, some of them will catch you off guard. The thing I found was I started crying and everything. I was reading books and crying at the books and having this really cathartic moment. Why am I crying?
I have feelings.
Feelings.
Feelings. Well, Felicity, the feelings for you and the emotions coming out of hormones, what were they like for you?
It was overwhelming, but at the same time, like Forth was saying, it's great.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hang on. There are these feelings that were there before, but like they've just out of reach, and now they're actually front and centre.
Yeah.
And you can touch them.
And you can touch them, and I can express myself. Oh, wow, this is great. I can cry. Hang on, this is new.
Yeah.
And even for me, the whole crying situation itself, which was something which is completely new. So for you, the whole crying emotional side of that was pretty bizarre.
It was bizarre, and it's like, oh, hang on. I get this now.
Yeah, you totally get it.
Yeah. And it's actually, I found, again, talking to trans men, I've known a couple of them who've sort of lamented the loss of the ability to just have a good cathartic cry.
Yeah.
Saying, I used to have access to this. This used to be one of my coping mechanisms, and now I just sit there and go, I'm very upset.
I don't know, Simona, what about for you? What have hormones done for you?
Well, I've always been a sook.
Oh.
So I've always had a good sookie lala, so that's fine. My skin's amazing. People walk up to me in nightclubs and touch me and they go, your skin's so amazing. Oh my God, what's your secret? And I'm like, hormones.
Yeah.
You know, transitioning late in life.
Yeah.
You know.
I get that.
Yeah.
I don't know what, it's skin. It keeps my insides in, but I don't see the difference.
Apparently everyone goes mad for mine. I'm like, ooh,
that's really quite true because the
touch
skin
me.
is so much softer. I'm like, okay, this is a bit different.
That was probably what the first thing I noticed was the change in my skin.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah. No, I don't know. The crying thing, I've just kept crying all the way through life. Really?
We always just cry.
Yeah. But like, I mean, the thing that I found like probably like the biggest relief was just the change in my sexual energy.
Yeah.
That was probably like, I think, like it freed me up of a lot of stuff that I really didn't need to deal with. So I kind of found that to be one of probably the most liberating things.
Did you find that with that you were able to connect with people on a totally different level?
I was able to connect with myself on a completely different level for a start, which was pretty good. Yeah, and then like the relationships and the friendships and that I was having and the way I communicate with other people was a hell of a lot better as well because it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't sort of possessed with this energy that I really didn't know how to cope with.
Yeah.
So,
was that the same for you, Felicity? The energy that you had was different and how you communicated with people?
Yeah, I mean, part of that was hormones, and part of that also was, I think it was my ability to just like take that into my new gender roles. And you know, try not to be normative here, but you know, there was that kind of social thing where I was like, okay, maybe I can do things a bit differently now. But definitely the connections with the hormones was great and did help that along.
Yeah.
And so just being able to connect with people emotionally was a lot better. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I found when I was first going on hormones was the changes in mood and mind and how things used to work. And all of a sudden, I would go from quite a relatively sane person to, bang, all of a sudden switch to someone who was quite frustrated and quite angry. And that only happened like maybe 2 times. But did you guys actually have similar experiences as well?
Not really. I mean, the time when I was initially starting hormones was also a very hard time in my life. Separating from my previous long-term partner because transitioning was it was a deal breaker for her. And my life was good. There was a lot of upheaval in my life, and it was traumatic in a lot of ways. So, I had other issues in my life. I don't know that I describe any of those sort of mood swings to being on hormones. I think it was more situational. But I certainly found that I had a broader range of emotional responses. I had a much greater level of, I suppose, emotional ability. And that made a difference to the way that I related to people, not only sort of in extreme situations, but just talking to people. I found I was able to talk to people a lot more easily. I was a lot more relaxed about talking to people, and I just found myself being a lot less awkward, which was nice.
Did you say, for Felicity, for you, did you find that with you having hormones prior presenting female full-time, was that easy for you? So you were going through the hormonal changes and physical changes before then you started to then present female. Was that an easier ride for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was really great. Just seeing from the mirror and waking up each morning going, oh, look, things have changed. And I think that kind of like made me feel a bit better as well about who I was and where I was going, that little steps along the journey. And so, there was definitely the hormonal part, but also the thinking about what was going on and what the future was and all that sort of thing that just pushes me along and made me feel a lot better about things.
Good things.
Yeah. And noticing the changes that it does make in your body does make a difference, and every now and you're just like,
Oh.
That's it. Yeah. And what about, but the other problem was, oh, hang on.
I was kind of into it. I think I made the point before ages ago. It was kind of like, oh my god, I got varicose veins. It's amazing. I was celebrating my varicose veins. Your breasts get bigger and all that kind of stuff. Physically things change. I mean, and I know I'm kind of like sort of 2-3 years into it now. So I mean, the exciting thing is that like in those first few years, like actually experiencing the changes happening. But then after a while, everything kind of sort of, peters out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you are who you are.
Thanks, guys. We could talk hormones absolutely all night, but we're going to refrain from doing that. You've been watching Bent TV.
Welcome to Bent TV. I'm Andy McNamara. Tonight I'm speaking to Brenda Appleton. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you, Andy.
We are going to speak about trans and gender diverse mental health, which I don't know much about, so hit us, baby.
The Curtin University, with some funding from Beyond Blue, undertook a survey 2 years ago in Australia, and it included 946 trans and gender diverse people all across Australia. So it's a very extensive survey, and the survey was looking particularly at the mental health of that community group. And they concluded, based on all the factors they looked around in terms of people's levels of anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide risk, they decided that the mental health for the trans and gender diverse community was probably the worst of any community in Australia.
Which is what I would expect, just given the discrimination and the shame attached to trans people by families and colleagues quite often.
I think it confirms what we already knew.
Yes.
And we've known through different surveys, a closer look at private lives too. We know from Blues to Rainbow that there has been a lot of information and confirmation that the trans and gender diverse community suffer excessive mental health issues.
Yes.
And it's not because of being trans, it's
No.
because of the discrimination, the social isolation that goes with it.
Totally.
We now think that probably 40 to 50% of trans people attempt suicide at some stage in their life.
Wow.
And this is 25 plus times what it is in the general community.
Totally. That's terrible.
And what I'm finding frustrating is that we've had this information been reinforced with the recent surveys, but we've known it for many years.
Yes.
And we've not been able to get much done about it. Transgender Victoria runs its own anxiety support group,
Right.
because there isn't any funding to provide a professionally run one. And I don't think that's good enough. So I think that we will be working much more closely with the government, both at a state and federal level, to try and ensure better allocation of resources to target mental health for trans and gender diverse people. We have more than one suicide a month in Melbourne from the community, and this is very sad.
Yes.
Things are so much better than they were when I started 20 years ago.
The world is changing quickly, but there's a long way
it's
to go.
still not meeting the needs of so many. And we know in some schools we're still getting high levels of bullying and harassment. I would like to say that Safe Schools Coalition are doing a fantastic job where they get invited into secondary schools,
Right.
mainly. So we're making great progress, but it's still leaving a lot of people behind. And I think in today's world, for us to know and have known for some time that trans and gender diverse suffer worse mental health and still not to be doing something about it, I think is very sad.
If there was more funding, what could and should be done?
I think we need to be providing better resourced counselling and psychological support services.
Right.
We don't need psychiatrists, we don't have a mental illness, but we do need help with coping skills in life. And at the moment, the federal government is cutting back on mental health support,
Right.
and there are fewer and fewer avenues for people who aren't well paid to be able to get help. In my own case, I had 4.5 years of counselling before I finally transitioned, and even then I had 3 suicide incidents. My partner needed psychological help to work through the issues. My 2 children did. So for all of us, coping with the mental stresses of being rejected by society and facing discrimination and making life-changing decisions are very difficult.
Do counsellors of trans people and their families, do the counsellors need specialised training, or does it fall under general counselling training?
No, and I think you raise a good issue, because we don't have enough counsellors who are sufficiently experienced in trans matters.
Right.
And unfortunately, the medical profession seems still to frown upon people who specialise on trans and gender diverse matters.
Wow, is that amazing these
Yeah,
days?
it's disappointing.
Yes.
It's a very conservative profession, and therefore we would love that there is high level of awareness in terms of the issues, and that there is no further stigma attached to those that specialise and meet the needs. So we would love that they're part of their professional development included being trained around the issues faced by trans and gender diverse people, and therefore being in a position to help people. This is particularly important outside of Melbourne. So in Melbourne there are a number of different places people can go to, but once you're outside of Melbourne there's very little skilled resource out there, and it means we're letting our community down.
This is getting off track a little bit, but wouldn't it be great if, even if we had a trans person or two in a visual profile position, like a newsreader or something, not a cabaret performer, but just some very standard bulk job where they got seen by people. Even that would save.
I think
thousands
so.
of lives.
I think Kate McGregor's done a great job in terms of raising the
That's a
profile
great
in
example.
Australia.
Yes.
And I think, we've recently had the transition of Bruce Jenner to Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes.
And I think all of these events, although in Caitlin's case it's a rather high-profile situation, I think all of these events help to talk up some of the issues faced by trans and gender diverse people and their families.
Yes,
because it's difficult for many.
Brenda, thanks so much for coming on Bent TV tonight. You educate us and intrigue us and help us as always. Thanks so much.
Thank you, I've enjoyed it.
See you next time. You've been watching Bent TV.
Thank you for staying with Bent TV. Please visit our website, Twitter, YouTube channel and Facebook to find the different ways you can support Bent TV, provide feedback and become involved in supporting Bent TV. Back after this break.
Hi, my name's Big Bear Mark and welcome to the Bear Cave. Today in the Bear Cave I have with me James Houghton. Hey James, how you going?
How you doing?
And also Steve Charles.
Hi Mark.
Hey Steve. Today we're going to be talking about a subject which is a bit controversial. We're going to be talking about PreP or pre-exposure prophylactic.
All right.
Now, James, you're a medical professional.
Kind of, mental health nurse.
Mental health nurse. How do you see PreP in Australia at the moment?
In a really funny space. I mean, it's controversial, as you said at the beginning, and it's got a lot of people talking about it. Some in a good way, some in a not so good way. As we know, it's a prophylactic. It's something that we take before to prevent something, and it's got people's really thinking about what's it for, why we're using it.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, obviously it's an antiviral or two antiviral drugs that people are taking before, well, hopefully before they are exposed to HIV.
Yeah.
And in America, where it's more widely available, there's this, because the brand name is Truvada, and there's this whole thing around Truvada whores where they've taken, but they've actually owned it and said, like, well, yes, we like sex, and yes, we're having sex without condoms.
Yep.
But I mean, healthcare professionals in Australia are saying we should be using it with condoms.
Yeah, I think the message has always been that we've got to add. It's taking as many precautions as we possibly can to prevent the spread of the disease, and the debate, I guess, the irony of it all is that people are saying it promotes promiscuous behaviour, that people are having bareback sex and not worrying about the consequences. My personal take on that is that that's not true. I see it as something that's very responsible, and it's about actually people taking more care rather than less care of themselves. And if we think about medicine, what does medicine do? It helps prevent diseases, and that's, as a health professional, that's what we should be about. We're about making sure that fewer people get the virus.
Steve, in the bear community, do you think that we have an issue with safe sex?
I don't think we have an issue with safe sex. I just think it's whether you consider yourself promiscuous or not. I think that because there's a lot of single guys in the bear community, and of course you're swapping partners, you go to dance clubs, dance parties, and there are clubs and all those sort of things. So you tend to, you've got to have multiple partners regardless. So, and I'm not saying that makes you promiscuous. It's just the way things are. I think that the attitude towards it is fairly healthy. Although I was reading up on the statistics, the rate of HIV is on the rise in Australia, 5.7%, and Victoria is leading that. Now I don't know how that translates to the bear community, but I think that you still have to, as having lived through the 80s, I think you really just have to take everything that you can possibly get to add to your own protection. I think perhaps a good step towards doing that, but it's still like we're still going through the trials. We still haven't finished a year's trial in Australia. So I think that when that comes out and all of the facts are known for our own community, then hook right into it. I
think the stats tell us that the behaviour is happening. It's not actually the before Truvada and before PreP ever existed, the stats were already on the rise, which tells you that things are, the condom message is, it's somehow losing its oomph, and it's not what it was. I mean,
we were all around for the Grim Reaper campaigns. We were there. The current generation don't remember that sort of grim exposure that was on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the message is getting a bit lost these days.
Yeah.
And with the rise of PreP, I mean, you can get PreP. You have to have a prescription, but you can get it from overseas sources.
And lots of people are.
And lots of people are. So it is on the rise. So do we feel like that in the bear community that people will be taking advantage of PreP and maybe not using condoms?
I don't know about you guys, but I think that it kind of generalises across the bear community. Obviously, we've got our likes and our lustings, but it's across the whole spectrum of gay men. I don't think bears have a kind of an ownership or monopoly on lusty, leery behaviour. although if you go to some of the places, I mean, my personal take is I think it's across the whole spectrum. And the interesting thing about the Grim Reaper campaign, I wasn't in Australia at the time, but there's a mixed kind of reaction to it. A lot of people are saying it frightened people, and it actually put people off getting treatment, getting tested, and then reporting. It put a lot of people on the back foot.
But going through that time, it was a very scary time.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel as kind of we're a little bit overboard, but having lost 2 partners myself through HIV and associated things, it's just a very scary time. And as you know, Mark, going through that period as well, that message has been lost, just how many people actually suddenly found out they had it and how many people it actually did sort of knock off in a very short period of time. Yeah. So I think when it comes to things like PreP, great. Use it, use any precaution that you possibly can, and but I still think the condom message still needs to be out there.
Yeah. Do you think Australia's acting fast enough to get PreP into Australia? Because
no.
I mean, it's not on the PBS. It's just it's taking its time.
Yeah.
Should we be pushing governments to have it now?
I think we should, and I know we are. I mean, there's a big push to try and get the government to put it on the PBS, which means that people can get it either free or a lot cheaper. I think the reality is that it's a preventative measure that we really need to. It's not promoting loose sex. It's not promoting bad behaviour. That behaviour is already happening.
Yes.
And the take-home message is we need to be doing whatever we can. There are no right or wrong moves in anything that we can do to prevent the spread of the disease. It's got to be a good thing.
The only other thing that I don't like about it too is that one of the drugs has an 11% propensity to depression. So if you already suffer that, it could be a trigger for that as well. So you just have to be careful of the side effects.
Yeah.
And of course, with any of this, you've got to do this in consultation with your doctor.
Definitely.
And make sure that everything is safe, and you basically follow through with your doctor and make sure things are going well.
Yeah. And it's not either or. It's not PreP or condoms. It's PreP and condoms when possible.
Yes.
We have to remember that some people, and there are lots of perfectly normal, healthy people who cannot have sex with condoms. That's not, it's not about shaming people who can't use condoms. It's about encouraging everybody that can to use them, and those that can't, this is a backup and adjunct kind of treatment.
As well as PEP.
As well as PEP.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's a good
three-armed approach, three-pronged approach.
And I think at the end of the day, anything to prevent the spread of HIV is going to be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right, we've got to wrap it up, guys. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us on the Bear Cave today. We'll see you next time.
That's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching. My name is Gavin Henderson. Please visit our website, YouTube channel, Facebook to keep in contact and support Bent TV.